Hey, welcome back to another Black City Coffee vlog. In this video, I'm going to answer a question from somebody. This is from Dylan Morris. In one of your recent videos, you mentioned you were finally doing true to form lights. What could you recommend to help me achieve more of that third wave type of light coffee without being over acidic and lacking sweetness? Yeah, that's a really, really good question, Dylan. I think for me, in my experience, making a true to form light roast means a couple of things. And I'm going to show you guys just an example to work off of. Mr. Pablo is I think a really good example of roasting something kind of like true to form, I think, in that you really have to be conscious of that finishing temperature if and when you've gotten everything else right. You know, let's clarify this. So when I say true to form light roast for me, like I define a light roast in a certain way. It should definitely have a certain color. I don't have like a color meter or anything like that, but it should definitely have a light color, and it shouldn't be the same as what I would classify medium or dark, obviously, right? The physicality of the finished bean should be maybe kind of wrinkly, a light brown, maybe even a tan, not tan, a light brown color. And if I look at the roast data, if they look at the roast curve, it should be somewhere around 4 minutes in the first phase, somewhere around 4 minutes in the second phase, or shorter. I could come shorter, maybe like 3 minutes, 3 minutes 30. I think I could shorten that up a little bit. I think for light roasts in the middle phase, you need to crack 3 minutes at least, or else, yeah, you are gonna lack some sweetness. And if you can at least come up to 3 minutes 30 to 4 minutes, to accentuate that sweetness the most, that is ideal. And then at the end, if you've got that right, you need to cut it off, depending on the kind of bean, right? So if you're working with a washed, maybe this is different, but with a natural, because they can take on heat so much, I think it helps if you can cut off that development and drop that coffee pretty quickly, meaning before a minute, just because it's a natural. I think if it's a wash, you can extend that a little bit, but not too much. And these are all very like, and I think in the technical sense, that to me is going to be a light roast. Now, again, this is all checking the box if in the sight glass and smell and all the things, you check those boxes for a light roast. And then to remember that when you drop the coffee, it's not done, right? So it's still hot. The coffee is actually really hot. You can't even touch it, you know? So it's trying to cool down, and we're trying to cool that coffee down pretty quickly so that we can sort of like freeze it in its tracks. But as you know, it doesn't do that ever. So you kind of have to predict and account for that extra bit of roasting that's going to happen in the cooling tray, even though we dropped it at a certain number, right? So I've talked about that. So depending on the power of your cooling tray or how fast you can cool that coffee when you drop it, that's actually going to be the finishing temp slash time slash color slash development, whatever, okay? All right, with all of that being said, you guys have my roast curve in the link down below. That's basically what I tried to do. Do I always get it? I think with the Mr. Pablo, I can get this easier just because I think it's a natural and it can take on heat a little bit easier. So that means for me, when I'm operating my machine and I'm trying to manipulate my heat, I have a lot of power in my machine. All I need to do, which is easier said than done, is manage that heat. But I think when I have a washed coffee, like say the Ethiopia, which can take on a lot more heat, there's a little bit more that I have to predict for, deal with, I guess, at the roaster, because the coffee can take more. There's more, I guess, room to play, you know, more room to screw it up as well. More room to play, right? Okay, there's a little bit more range to like drop this coffee, do you know what I'm saying? So maybe a light for an Ethiopia, maybe like 1:10 versus a light for the Mr. Pablo is like 48 seconds. Do you know what I'm saying? In the development, in the last phase. So for the same coffees, washed versus natural, it's going to just be a little bit different. But the difference, I think, is in seconds. It's in seconds. You know, that could be a little bit anxious. But that's why you've got to use your senses as well, not just looking at the time, not just looking at the temperature, or things like that. Because that all that stuff it's like, how accurate is that? You know? So it's something, it's a tool, it's a way to measure, in addition to all the other checks that you have as a roaster when you're at the machine. Again, don't forget to cup, right? And then I think I also talked about this, is defining what a light roast is for you as a roaster. You know, there's a range within light, there's a range within medium. Dare I say there's a range within dark, for sure. So you as a roaster, defining that for you first, right? So as you're roasting and as you're learning, and you're trying to become successful, obviously you're going to have some goals, right? But I think it's really easy to forget to set goals that you can actually accomplish, right? So for you as a roaster, I have no idea what your situation is over there. I don't need to. You need to know what your situation is and go, okay, based on my situation, this is my target. This is my goal, right? So your goal has to fit your situation, right? So my metrics, or the way that I roast coffee, if I have a totally different machine than you, should be different, right? But underlying it all, we're still, in a way, speaking the same language, because we are cupping the coffee, we're looking at the coffee, we're seeing numbers as a tool, and we're tasting the difference between our light and our medium and our dark. And then visibly being able to repeat that, you know, repeatability is something I learned with Mike over at Clatch, is like, can you repeat it? Can you be consistent? So, and that comes with time and with practice and all that stuff, and realizing what those patterns are, and then being able to use that to your advantage when you keep roasting. Okay, so that's a little roundabout way of answering your question, but definitely for sweetness, I'll sum this up. For sweetness, I would want to make sure that middle phase is not too short, meaning I'm at least hitting 3 minutes. If I'm under 3 minutes, I think it's going to be quite sharp and harsh. If I'm over 4 minutes, I'm getting into 5, like say I let the fuel stall, it's going to start to feel flat. So there's a sweet spot, okay? I kind of forgot to mention this. There's a sweet spot for the middle phase. Yes, to like at least 3 minutes 30, 4 minutes. Try to hit that. And then at the end, finish it based on what you see and hear and smell and all that stuff in the sight glass in your trier. And then based on your previous experience with this coffee, right? So obviously you've done a couple of these roasts, maybe not to a light, maybe they're always going to medium. Okay, so with that being said, you can even take a cup of that last roast that you did, right? Hold it up to the sight glass and look at it and go like, huh, it's lighter, it's lighter, it's lighter. Okay, I think I can drop it now. It looks good. And sometimes that feels like you're guessing, but it's not really, because you're having this point of reference, right? To let you know, if I go past this color, nope, this roast is in a way failed, but we'll cup it still. But it's good to have a little point of reference, right? Instead of trying to remember what you last did. I used to do this. And sometimes if I'm trying to match like a sample roast that I did on the production roaster, so I want to compare sample roast to production roast, I hold this up to the sight glass and be like, okay, it's looking at the same drop. Okay, cool. Something like that, right? I don't know. Figure out a system that works for you. You know, you try to use all the tools at your disposal. Try to give yourself the best advantage to hit that target, to make sure your goal is successful. Okay? Okay. So I hope that helps. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Bye.